Alright, so it was just, this was just a nice, another little episode of the Owl House. There wasn't really that much, it was just, let's see, you had time travel, you had Ida and her father, and then you had, Philip Woodbine being confirmed as Emperor Bellos. The usual. How is everyone doing today, guys? My name's Tico's, and this episode just, oh my god, it just gives you everything in terms of I wouldn't say it gives you everything, it gives you a lot. It gives you a lot. It doesn't give you everything because, obviously we're not at the end of the show, so, we still have some questions, and of course we still have a few mysteries. And, of course, the overarching story itself, so, yeah, but, this, oh my god. So, yeah, let's get into it. This is the Owl House. This is episode 31 of the series. This is episode 12 of season 2. This, Elsewhere and Elsewhen. And, man, this episode is just... the story itself was pretty straightforward of a story, and I felt because, in terms of, what a lot of shows and movies, you have, a time travel story with the two characters, or with mainly, here and there, mostly two characters, go back in time to encounter someone, and based on from what I've seen, I've watched the episode twice, so I noticed a few things the second time around especially with the Philip's journal, showing that Luce and Lilith were there. So it's more of this seems more like a 12 Monkeys kind of thing rather than a Back to the Future kind of thing, where if you go back and alter the timeline, it's gonna be altered. But in this case, it's no, you going back was always gonna happen. It's no matter what you do in the past, it won't affect the outcome of the future. It's because that's what it was gonna be. So this episode was... So a few things for me about this episode was, I think the first thing is it's a good episode. That's without a doubt. Because there are a lot of great moments in this. There's a good, the reveal of, or the confirmation, I guess is better to say, because I feel like this has been a thing for a while now that Philip was Bellos. A part of me was wondering if that was intentional, to make it seem like Philip is Bellos, but then the twist being oh no, it's not him, it's actually his brother. But no, it's Bellos, and I do kind of like how if you went solely based off the journals, what everyone was doing this far, what the Echo Mouse was showing, what the Echo Mouse was giving us, the way Phil talked about the world, the way he talked about himself, and what he did and what he saw, it's you can see kind of Bellos there, but you kind of wondering so what caused him to go down this path to the Emperor? This episode kind of shows you, no, that's not entirely what Philip was like. And it's yeah, so I guess let's just go through this. So the episode starts with Lilith having a party for getting a new job. They said she's a curator at a museum, which I feel we've already been one curator of a museum, and we know how that went for a specific demon. So I think that's, I don't know whether that's a joke or just nice little, for Lilith it makes sense because she as we saw in Echoes of the Past, she knows a lot of history and so wants to know a lot more. So for her to be a curator of a museum, that makes sense. And I do a few things about her party that are funny. One, I like her new outfit. I felt like the low battery shirt, it was fun at first, but I felt it kind of lost its touch after a few episodes. I mean, you know, it's like you're trying to do like a serious episode and then you have that battery shirt. It's like, okay, maybe that isn't gonna work. So I do like her new outfit, and I also like that she has her glasses. So I guess the thing is, how does that work? Because I mean, there's a healing coven, so it's like, does eyesight, like, does it still deteriorate? So then there's no actual way to heal that. So it's like, but I do like that, because, you know, when we saw Lilith as a kid, she had glasses, but then when she was on the Emperor's Coven, she didn't have glasses. So I'm glad that she went back to having glasses, because one, she does look nice with them, and I also just like her. Her you know, her outfit feels very, you know, very civilized, but it kind of does have a bit of her flair. Like, I mean, you still have like the blue there, but there's also the brown, the green, you know, so nice little mixture of colors for her. And I also like that, I love at her party that it's Steve was there. Which was great. I love that. I love that Steve was there. Out of all the Emperor Coven cards, of course Steve would be the one, because as we saw in freaking Sense and Insensitivity, it's like that's the one guard who seemingly has Lilith's respect, and Lilith actually likes, and of course the fan base is like immediately loves Steve at that point. So I'm glad that he's here. I also like that Luce and King are kind of referring to Lilith as Auntie. That was a cool thing with I love that. I love the commentary. I love the duo of Luce and Lilith, which I was wondering if we were going to get an episode like this where Lilith and Luce would be working together. I mean, they have worked together in the past, but I mean, it's usually been like, well, Ida's in trouble, or like we're having King along with this too. So it's like, for it to be solely Lilith and Luce, that was really cute and really awesome, and just made a few jokes along the way. So, but of course, the main reason why they're both working together is because Luce is trying to figure out what went wrong in terms of her making the portal, because she feels like she did it right, so she's trying to figure out what went wrong. And so she feels like the only way, maybe if she could actually talk to Philip, maybe she can figure out what happens. And so Ida tells Luce about how when she and Lilith were kids, they tried to go find these like magic, like time pools. Basically, that's what happens when Titan's blood mixes with the boiling sea. It causes like a little like pool where you can actually, if you step through it, you actually can travel through time. So it's like kind of like a rift in time, I feel like is a good way to sum it up. And so she says, like, although Ida was always very curious about it, it seemed like Lilith was more interested in trying to figure it out. So Luce goes to Lilith, and so the two of them go out and they venture. But of course, the thing for me about time travel, especially in a show like this where we're this deep into the series, I was like, okay, so if there's gonna be time travel, there needs to be a few things. Like, one, if it exists, how come it hasn't been done before? And so that's answered here, and that's because just finding one of them is really difficult. Like, Lilith was able to develop this device that detects where they are, and even then, like, it needs a lot of power, so they use Titan's blood, because Luce has it from Amity's glove, and I love that. She has it pinned up on her on a board, and even then she has a sticky note next to it saying "Buy Amity a new glove." That's just great. I love that. But yeah, they do find it when, and honestly, there's two things about it. One, it's clever where they do find it because it's in the sand on the shoreline, which makes sense then as to why it was really hard to find it, because they talk about how it's like a pool, so it's like you think, oh, it's gonna be water, but it's like, no, it's actually in the sand here, which is nice, because Titan's blood can wind up in the sand, and so can the boiling sea, water from the boiling sea, so it makes sense that it could possibly mix into the sand like that. However, it makes me wonder, has anyone just stumbled upon them? Like, because Luce and Lilith do need to like actually get down on their knees and like rummage through the sand to like find it. But I feel like if someone wasn't paying attention and like they maybe accidentally step through, or maybe they can just consider it as quicksand. Because, I mean, if you fall through, and if you fall through, I mean, you fall through the wrong one, you're gonna end up in the prehistoric age. And that was another thing I was worried about too, because I'm like, how does a time pool work in this situation? So it turns out it just depends on which one you find. So like Luce, they find multiple. They find one where Luce ends up in like this like a Jurassic age, where you have a dinosaur, where you have kind of like this dinosaur. And then you have another one where it's only been like you only go back a minute in the past. And like, that was cool because when Lilith originally arrived there, she tripped on something and so she thought it was a rock. But then a few minutes later, she dips her head through the sand and it turns out that's what it was. Like when she popped her head out through the sand, she got hit in the head with her own foot, which was great. I love that. But of course, the era that they're actually looking for is the Deadwardian area, because that's when Philip Woodbine was there. And so Luce, of course, you know, she wants to go to try and find Philip, and Lilith's tagging along because, one, obviously, if she figures that if she discovers the location of how to time travel, that's cool, and also she can go back and like collect samples of like a historic period so she can use them in her exhibit. So win-win. So yeah, that's what they're doing, and all the while this is happening while Ida is at the Owl House. And the B plot of this episode is, it's not really a lot, it's just what it is something that I think, in terms of both her character and like the series, needed to be like at least addressed, and that was her relationship with her father. Because up to this point, the only thing we know about Ida and her father was that what happened, because we got this in Knock Knock on Who's Door, because Ida, when she turned into the Owl Beast, she scarred her father. Her father lost his eye, and even lost like his hand is shaking. And we find out in this episode that he actually makes palisman. He's a palistrum wood carver. So like, or it was, I should say, because nowadays he can't carve palisman. He can't do that. And what makes it very sad is because it turns out that's what Ida. He actually helped Ida create Owlbert, that's just another level of like, oh my god, that's so sad. That's so, because that was the thing. Like, Ida said she made Owlbert, but it's like, oh well, I mean, yes, she technically did, but she made it alongside her father. But I guess at the time when she was talking about Owlbert with Luce, she wouldn't want to bring up her father, so that's why she would say I made him. So, but oh man, it's a really emotional scene. I mean, there are a few jokes, like, you know, Ida trying to avoid her father, and like she even tries to disguise herself as Lilith to escape, but even her mom's just like, you really think she thought I bought that? And I love King just like, just let her have that. Just let her have the win. But I mean, even when Ida tries to escape, she literally just stumbles onto her father, and like, she can't really fly off, like, I mean, because, I mean, she's done it too many times. It's like they have to at least talk about something. And I like that for Ida. It's, you know, she's like, well, you've already forgiven me, so it's like, yeah. So it's really just been her guilt over it. I mean, that makes sense because it's like, it's the Owl Beast. It's like, but I also like how when they talk about it, it's like she first says, it was my fault, and it's like, no, and then she then says it's the Owl Beast's fault, but then even then she like has that like moment of like, no, because now it's like she knows that the Owl Beast, like, she and the Owl Beast are a part of each other now. It's like, so it's like, for her to blame it on herself isn't right, and even for her to blame it on the Owl Beast isn't right now. And I love that. I love that we're getting that relationship between the two, like, at least like solidifying like that, like, because I feel like there's still gonna be a bit of tension between the two, but at least nowadays it's like they're friends, I think is the best way to sum that up. I don't know. Okay, yeah. So, but at least in terms of what her father's been doing, it's been he actually got in contact with the Bat Queen because, you know, I mean, the Bat Queen has been saving a bunch of palismen, and so he wants to help. And he even gives Ida a palistrom seed, which, of course, means that there's going to be a palistrom tree, and he wants her to, you know, at least continue the family legacy of being the palisman woodcarvers. And I even like that they mentioned how the owl house, like, it turns out that was her father's old tower, so I like that Ida is actually using it as her home, and, like, that's what she's been doing, and I like that because, you know, the connection with the family, but also just making it her own, which is nice little, like, tidbit there. But in terms of, like, everything else, like, he really, I mean, that's pretty much what it is between Ina and her father, and it's really touching. It's a really nice scene. I really like how Wendy Malick really portrays Ina in that scene, and the father's really nice, good too. I mean, because obviously he is in pain, but he also understands why Ida is the way she is in that current moment, and I even like him just like Ida's like trying to fix this relationship, and he's like, oh no, I'm not here to try that again. It's like at this point he's like, he knows that they can't fully mend the relationship that they had. It's like, but at least they can keep plant the seed for something new. Like, that's pretty much what I got out of that. It's just like, it's all really touching, and I'm glad we got that scene with Ida, because it's obviously a thing that she needed to overcome after everything that's happened with her, and so makes sense. And yeah, so that's everything with that, because the majority of this episode is with Lilith and Luce in the Deadboardian era when they're going, and at first, you know, it's like it's like the classic medieval kind of world, you know. It's like you got the fancy clothes, the old medieval clothing. You got these people. You got the one man. It's like, oh, good day. It's like, so, but of course, that was the thing I was curious about too, because, you know, Lilith comes in and it's like, oh no, this is during the Savage Ages. This is like wild magic, dangerous witches, and it's like, no, they are actually nice. Like, at least most of the citizens are nice. There's still some jerks. I mean, but of course, it makes me do wonder, like, okay, so why is this a bit different? I mean, because we see Philip Whittabane, and again, through the books, you know, it seems like he's a kid, he's curious, a young, curious mind trying to figure out this world that he's in. He talks about, I mean, it seems like through the books that he has sympathy for the people around him, like, because what happened in Eclipse Lake, he's like, my journey was both a victory and a tragedy. I lost my friends. I lost friends to Fool's Blood. And it's like, what does that mean? But of course we do see Philip in this, and he's grown. I don't know how long it's been. Like, I think it's been decades since he's been there, since he got stuck. So obviously he's been working on the portal for a long time. But he's there. He's being picked on by these few of these demons. There was Red Fang and Green Fang, and then they read through his journal and they're like, listen to this, and it's like, so basically the way he writes down his stuff is, of course, different than what he at least is experiencing. Like, so he's kind of writing it through his mind, kind of like making a fantasizing, I think is the best way to say it, because I really do like how when we see Philip here and we learn who he really is at the end of this episode, it would make sense that Lilith and Luce were the two that he got to interact with, because that's the thing, like, you know, Luce up to this point, you know, she has her moments where the demon realm really does, like, get to her, but of course she has been able to overcome that because she has her friends, she has Ida, and so, you know, just learning that, no, that is what's going to happen, and that you need to accept that, you need to be able to overcome that. And of course, just her not being able to fit at home either, you know, it's like, so she, at least when it comes to her dealing with this, she has a positive attitude, she has a good spirit. And so I feel like that clashing with what Philip is in this makes sense in terms of like the characters. Like, I mean, because Philip here, he seems to be like, he doesn't seem to be very popular in this realm. Like, I mean, Luce literally is like, has anyone seen a human around here? I mean, imagine if there's imagine a human is like, and everyone's like, I haven't seen a human. It's like, so that is the thing with Philip, you know, he's like, he doesn't really seem to be a popular human. And even when Luce saves him from the demons and, you know, like helps him get his journal, gets like his stuff back, like even then he isn't like very kind. Like he, you know, he's like, I don't need your sympathy and all that. And so he seemingly doesn't want any help. He just wants to do everything. And so of course there's a few things to that. It's like, has he always been like that, or something happened that caused him to divert from it, and now he's like, he doesn't like, so of course, I think it all ties into this brother that he has, like, because, because again, yesterday's lie kind of showed that there was actually 2 humans that seemingly were lost. So I think in terms of, like, when Philip writes his journals, perhaps he, like, either he started writing the journals after he lost his brother, or he didn't include his brother in his findings because maybe his brother, whereas, I mean, here's my theory on this. It's gonna be very quick because I really gotta get this video done. Philip and his brother, I think I feel like they both turned up in the Boiling Isles. I think Philip was more concerned about getting home, while his brother was more curious about the world that they were in, and that he perhaps liked this world, and despite it, because it's nice, it's medieval. Maybe it still has its dangers, but like for the most part, it's that you can learn magic. Like Philip knows how to do magic, at least most of them. Like he didn't know how to do the light glyph, but it makes sense because he talked about how he learned the plant, he learned ice from the snowflake. Fire, we saw how easily Luce found fire, and like plants, you just gotta look close at a flower. So, but of course for light, you wouldn't really notice it. You could probably, even when the constellation had it, it was very hard to see it. So I feel like in terms of the 2, I feel like Philip was more concerned about getting home, and Hunter, I'm gonna call him Hunter because why does Bellows call Hunter Hunter? Like, I feel like that's gonna be a connection to the brother. So I think the brother he liked it, but then something happened between the 2, and maybe the brother died, and so Philip is like, oh, it was wild magic, I gotta fix this, I gotta make things right. And so that's kind of, but of course that kind of makes him a little bit harder on those around him. So even when Luce saves him, he's very harsh. And of course, it's like he doesn't want her help, but of course, Luce wanting to figure out the portal makes a deal with him, saying like she can help him find the collector, which is outside of knock knock knocking who's door. That's really the first time we talked about the collector. And so the collector, I am intrigued to see what the collector really is, because they talk about, because in the journal entry that we get for this episode, it turns out the collector is one of the reasons why Philip was able to complete the portal. So I wonder if this collector is, it's the collector, so that means they probably know how to get everything needed to create something like that. But I wonder in terms of like the overarching story, how this collector is going to play it, because Bellows because we know that Bellows, he's taking over the Boiling Isles, and last episode he talked about going to the head of the Titan with everyone of the coven, all the covens, and in this episode we go to the head of the Titan because Philip has learned a very complex glyph combo that can do teleportation, and so he takes Luce and Lilith to the head of the Titan, where they find what seems to be the lair of the collector. And at first it seems like, oh, we just gotta get through this door, how do we do it? But then of course Lilith, this whole time by the way, is very skeptical about it, because she doesn't really know what Philip is like, and neither does Luce. But Luce of course wants to figure out how to make a portal home, so she is very desperate, and so just goes along with it. But it turns out that Philip, no, he just does not care for life because he was willing, he's willing to just leave. He's willing to just leave Lilith and Luce as bait for this monster, so he can just go in and get what he needs and gets out, and just like, wow, that is low. And even like Luce just can't believe it either, and so. But luckily for them, she and Lilith were able to get out because this is a prehistoric creature that Lilith actually gave a fact about Luce, saying like these creatures have very ticklish ears, and so Luce actually just goes up and starts tickling it. And I love Lilith in this episode too, multiple times. Like, she has a few moments where it's like, oh gosh, when they're looking for the time pool, there's a part where she's like, is this device broken? And then she takes off her glasses and just looks at her reflection. She's like, am I broken? And then in this case, when Luce goes to tickle the creature, Lilith just closes her eyes. She's like, Eda's gonna kill me. Eda's gonna kill me. Eda's gonna kill me. It's like, I love that. Just her first thought is like, if Luce does end up dead, Eda of course is gonna kill her because of the connection that they have. So, but no, Luce is able to tame the beast, and they even get to ride on it back to Philip, where I love that. Just like Philip's walking through the woods, he's like riding down, he's like, oh, another successful mission, lost people along the way, but I was able to attain what I needed. And then boom, just the monster appears behind them. Luce is like, you're gonna tell me how to freaking make the portal to the human world, and Philip, however, is like, oh, this wasn't for that. And Luce is like, what do you mean that wasn't for that? And I even love Lilith, like, she just snaps and she just punches him. That honestly, God, I couldn't stop laughing at that. I'm like, oh my God, Lilith punched someone. It's like, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, she is Eda's sister, so it's like, there's gonna be a moment where the two are gonna have like that moment of like, oh, that's where Lilith gets it. Or at least that's the cloth lord in her. That's really just, it was hilarious. I love that moment. But of course, with Philip not giving Luce what she needs, it's like, okay, well, I guess that was a complete waste. I mean, we say it's a complete waste, but it's like, because this is kind of going on 12 Monkeys rule. It's like, this is what's supposed to happen. And for Philip in this case, it seemingly adds a bit, because he goes back to his lair, which is in this cave. He's like, oh, those barbarians, those witches. It's like, he, of course, like, so he does have that anger towards them. He does have a prejudice towards it. Although, I mean, I haven't been intrigued if does he know Luce? Like, I mean, like, is he, I feel like later on in the series, like, he's gonna be like, when he's like, I didn't realize it at first, but once I put it together, I realized that was you. Like, perhaps he, like, has been preparing for that. Like, maybe once he figured out, wait a minute. Like, once Luce showed up, maybe in the demon realm the first time, like, maybe it's like, oh, wait, that does it? So, but the number one thing I really found interesting about Philip in this episode was the fact that, one, he has glyphs seemingly either burned or tattooed on him, which is, that's kind of cool, but at the same time, probably very reckless of him. I mean, maybe he thought, like, using the magic like that would make it more powerful, but it's like, no, that's not, it doesn't seem very stable, because as we see, like, whatever this curse that he has, it's been in him for a very long time. And he uses palistroms, or the talismans so like, it seems like what he does is, he finds companions to team up with, but then he gets rid of them, and he then takes their talisman to use as a siphon for what he needs to keep his curse in check. And however, it seems like the number one thing he wants planned, it doesn't seem like the portal is his priority in this case. It's whatever, I mean, it looks like the Day of Unity, because he's like, I just need to live long enough to see this through. And it's and you're gonna help me collect her. So like whatever the collector really is, Bellows is gonna use it for his deeds. Like, I mean, is it gonna be like, is he gonna teleport? I mean, I'm trying to really figure it out. I'm like, it's hard to really like take apart everything and be like, okay, what is Bellows' plan for himself? Like, he has made the front of like what other things are gonna be, but like, what is really gonna happen? Honestly, I could possibly talk about a few theories, but it's hard to really come up with some right now, because I mean, I literally just watched the episode, so I'm just going off of what I saw face value. So I'm like, okay, but I'm glad we at least got the confirmation that Philip is Bellows, because I felt like if they held that off until like the season finale, it would have been like, well, I mean, we figured it out at this point, so why did you hold off it? So I'm glad we at least get the confirmation, and so that way we can get that out of the way. It's like, now instead of like trying to figure out who Bellows is, now it's like, okay, what is his plan? Why is he doing this? What happened? It's like, now we can ask those questions. And of course, it's like, there is that question. I mean, even with my theory about them being the brothers, like, maybe they both use magic, but one wanted to use it to get home, the other wanted to use it for more of like the wild stuff. Maybe one wanted control, the other didn't want control. It's like, there can definitely be a lot of clashes. And it comes back to the hidden message that we got in season 1. You know, two witches torn apart. I can't remember the entire thing. I do remember the last part. It's let's see, like a trail of mud, or like mud, feathers, and a trail of feathers and mud, a betrayal of blood, I think is the exact. Again, I'm just going off of the episode. I completely didn't take any notes for this. I'm just going off of what I saw and what I want to talk about right now. So I feel like there is, if I can sit down and really decipher all this, I might have a theory. I mean, there's not a lot. I don't think there's enough pieces of the puzzle to really get what really happened with Bellows. But at least we get the confirmation that we know Bellows is Philip. So like, we can at least, as viewers, we can figure out, okay, what's the plan here? But yeah. Anything else? Yeah, no, I think that sounds about it. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you liked it, leave a like. If you want to leave a comment, leave a comment. And if you want to subscribe. You don't have to. I'm just saying. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you in the next video.